Coco Chanel, founder of Chanel, was abandoned at 12 and raised in an orphanage. No money, no connections, just a dream to revolutionize fashion. They told her a poor girl could never make it. She proved them all wrong. At 12 years old, Coco Chanel's world fell apart. Her mother died, and instead of caring for his children, her father walked away. She was sent to a convent orphanage where life was cold, strict, and lonely. The nuns taught her how to sew, but Chanel wanted more than a life of quiet obedience. She dreamed of freedom, of escaping the limits placed on women like her. At 18, she left with nothing but her sewing skills and raw determination. She worked as a seamstress by day and sang in smoky cafes at night, earning just enough to survive. That's where she became Coco. She started designing hats, simple, elegant, different, but no one believed a poor orphan girl could be a designer. She had no connections, no wealthy family name, just her vision. So she took a risk. She started her own shop. The early days were brutal. No investors, no luxury materials, just her working endlessly, hand-stitching each piece. People laughed at her designs. Where were the corsets, the lace? But women loved her bold, effortless style. One by one, they started buying. Word spread. Then came Chanel No. 5, a fragrance unlike anything before. It became a global sensation, and Chanel became a name the world would never forget. From an abandoned orphan with nothing to a fashion empire that still dominates today, Coco Chanel wasn't born into success. She created it. She refused to let her past define her. Where you start doesn't matter. It's what you do next that counts. If you've been here before, drop a hashtag Believe in the comments below so I can feature you here in a future video. And if you're new, welcome to Believe Nation, the only channel that helps you believe in yourself daily, one video at a time. Believe. Coco Chanel, from orphan to fashion icon. They told her a poor girl could never make it. Gabrielle Coco Chanel proved them all wrong. Abandoned at 12 and raised in a convent orphanage with nothing to her name, she would rise to revolutionize women's fashion. No money, no connections, just the vision and determination. This is the incredible true story of how Coco Chanel transformed herself from a destitute orphan into a legendary designer whose name is now synonymous with luxury and style. Early life of Gabrielle Chanel, poverty and ambition. Coco Chanel did not come from wealth or privilege, far from it. She was born Gabrielle Bonheur Chanel in 1883 to a laundrywoman and street vendor. After her mother died of tuberculosis in 1895, Chanel's father abandoned his children. 11-year-old Gabrielle was sent to a convent orphanage of Aubazine Abbey in rural France, and she never saw her father again. Life at the orphanage was strict and frugal, but it was here that Gabrielle learned to sew under the tutelage of the nuns, a humble skill that would become the foundation of her future empire. Despite the harshness of her childhood, young Gabrielle refused to let misfortune define her. Years later, she would famously say, "My life didn't please me, so I created my life." This bold credo was already taking shape in the orphanage. Dressed in the orphanage's plain black and white uniforms, Gabrielle absorbed influences that would later surface in her designs. The simplicity of black and white ensembles and even the interlocking CC logo of Chanel, which legend says was inspired by the geometric pattern of the Abbey's stained glass windows. At 18, too old to remain at Aubazine, she struck out on her own, leaving the orphanage with nothing but her sewing skills, a head full of dreams and determination. Finding a voice, from seamstress to Coco. Gabrielle spent her early adult years struggling to find the direction. She found work as a seamstress by day, and by night she attempted to reinvent herself as a singer in cabarets and cafes. Performing in dimly lit music halls for French cavalry officers, she earned a meager living, just coins tossed into a past hat. On stage, she usually sang a little ditty called "Who Has Seen Coco?" and before long, the nickname Coco stuck. She later claimed her father affectionately called her Coco, though there's no evidence of that. The singing career never took off though. Her voice was only average, but Coco's time as an entertainer gave her something arguably more valuable than fame, a persona and a network. The petite brunette with the juvenile allure charmed the uniformed gentleman in the audience, and she learned how to present herself with confidence. Coco Chanel was beginning to emerge. Ever practical, Coco later heeded her own advice. Don't spend time beating on a wall, hoping to transform it into a door. Performing wasn't opening doors for her, so she decided to pivot to something she was truly skilled at: fashion. By her early 20s, Chanel had begun to dream of designing hats and clothes. Around 1906, she befriended Etienne Balsan, a wealthy ex-cavalry officer, and became his companion. Living among the French elite in Balsan's chateau, Chanel was exposed to the lavish lifestyles of the rich. But instead of just reveling in luxury, she observed and learned. She started designing hats as a hobby while living at Balsan's estate, trimming and embellishing them in novel, pared-down ways that reflected her own fresh sense of style. This hobby would soon evolve into her entryway to the fashion business. Building the House of Chanel, the first shop. In 1910, at age 27, Coco Chanel took a daring step for a woman of her time. She opened her own tiny shop in Paris. With financial help from another admirer, the English polo player Arthur Boy Capel, she established a boutique at 21 Rue Cambon called Chanel Mode, selling the hats she so loved to design. It was an audacious move. She had no formal training, no famous family name, and Paris's fashion scene was ruled by established designers. In those early days, business was slow and resources were not available. Chanel reportedly had to work endlessly, hand-stitching each hat herself. People in high society laughed at the idea of a penniless orphan girl calling herself a designer. But Coco's hats were simple, elegant, and unlike the overly styled hats the women were used to. Her minimalist approach soon caught the attention of influential French actresses who began wearing Chanel's hats on stage and in public. This patronage gave Chanel's brand the first spark of publicity that it needed. As her hat shop reputation continued to grow, Chanel's ambitions expanded. She opened a second boutique in 1913 in the resort town of Deauville, Normandy, and there she debuted casual resort wear for women. Lacking the funds to buy expensive fabrics, Coco turned a limitation into an innovation. She used humble jersey fabric, then used mainly for men's underwear, to create stylish, sporty garments for women. The comfort and ease of these jersey dresses and sailor tops were a revelation. Women, especially the fashionable set Vacation by the Sea, fell in love with Chanel's relaxed but chic designs. By 1915, she'd opened yet another shop in Biarritz catering to well-heeled Europeans waiting out the First World War, and that shop did so well it enabled Chanel to pay back Boyd Capel's original investment by 1916. Chanel was now a rising star in fashion. Breaking fashion norms. Poor girl chic. Chanel's early designs were more than just new clothes. They were a rebellion against the stuffy fashion norms of the day. In the Edwardian era and into the 1910s, fashionable women were expected to wear corsets, layers of petticoats, and ornate frills. Coco Chanel did the unthinkable. She banished the corset and bobbed her hair. She offered clothes that prioritized comfort, movement, and understated elegance over rigid formalities. Her silhouettes were simple and straight, often inspired by menswear and the practical uniform she'd seen in the past. This was completely new territory, and at first many observers were shocked. One famous anecdote tells us of the celebrated designer Paul Poiret, known for his extravagant styles, encountering Chanel dressed in a plain black outfit. "For whom, madame, do you mourn?" he asked mockingly, suggesting her all-black attire looked like mourning clothes. "For you, monsieur," Chanel snapped back. In her trademark wit, she signaled that the old-fashioned order, represented by Poiret, was on its way out and a new era had begun. Chanel's confidence proved justified. By the end of World War I, women were ready for a fashion revolution. Harper's Bazaar declared in 1915 that any woman who didn't have a Chanel creation was hopelessly out of fashion. The ornate corseted look was dying, and Chanel's relaxed yet refined style was ascendant, fitting the needs of modern women stepping into more active roles in society. Chanel herself had become a symbol of the new liberated woman. She wore trousers, she drove her own car, and she socialized with artists and aristocrats alike. By 1918, she was successful enough to acquire an entire building at 31 Rue Cambon in Paris, which would become the famous Chanel Couture House. From a poorhouse orphanage to a townhouse in the most fashionable part of Paris, the transformation was complete. Or so it seemed. Throughout the 1920s, Coco Chanel reigned as one of Paris's premier couture houses. She had hit her stride, designing groundbreaking clothing that defined an era. But perhaps her most legendary contribution of that decade was the invention of the little black dress. In 1926, American Vogue published a drawing of a simple black dress by Chanel, calf-length with clean lines, and dubbed it Chanel's Ford, likening it to the Model T for its universality. In a time when black was mostly reserved for mourning, Chanel made it chic. The little black dress was affordable, accessible, and elegant, a symbol of modern women's taste. Suddenly, every woman of style wanted a simple black Chanel dress in her closet. As Vogue predicted, the LBD became a timeless staple, the go-to uniform for women of taste around the world. The Chanel empire beyond clothing. By the late 1920s, Chanel's fashion house was a booming enterprise. She had expanded beyond clothing into jewelry and accessories, and would soon leave perhaps her biggest mark on the world of luxury: fragrance. In 1921, with the help of perfumer Ernest Beau, Coco developed a perfume that was radically different from the norm. Instead of the typical single flower scents of the time, this new fragrance was a complex blend of notes, a perfume. Chanel says that smells like a woman, not a rose. She named it Chanel No. 5, choosing the 5th sample presented to her, which also happened to be her lucky number. Chanel No. 5 was launched and quickly became the fragrance sensation. It was light, fresh, and mysteriously alluring, and its sleek minimalist bottle stood out from the ornate perfume bottles of the other brands. Chanel No. 5 became the most famous perfume in the world, an icon of its own right. Years later, when Marilyn Monroe was asked what she wore to bed, her coy answer was, just a few drops of Chanel No. 5. Only adding to the legend. Chanel's business acumen shone through in how she marketed No. 5 and her fashion to the rich and famous. She rubbed shoulders with British aristocracy and Hollywood stars alike. She even designed costumes for films in the 1930s and counted the likes of actress Marlene Dietrich and artist Salvador Dali among her friends. By 1935, Chanel's empire reportedly employed some 4,000 people and was worth millions. She was not just a designer, she was a powerful businesswoman and household name. In 1931, she traveled to Hollywood at the invitation of producer Samuel Goldwyn to dress movie stars, a testament to her growing international reputation. Coco Chanel had come a long way from a girl who once sewed in a convent and sang for coins in dingy cafes. Trials of war and a triumphant comeback. As soaring as Chanel's success was, history intervened. In 1939, with the outbreak of World War II, Chanel made the difficult decision to close her couture house. Paris was under threat and luxury fashion was low on the world's priorities. She kept only her jewelry and perfume business. The sales of Chanel No. 5 kept money coming in, and famously took up residence in the Hotel Ritz. During the war years, Chanel's life grew more complicated and controversial, including accusations of collaboration with the occupying German regime, which would later cast a shadow on her legacy. By the time the war ended in 1945, at over 60 years old, Coco Chanel found herself out of the fashion limelight and living in semi-exile in Switzerland. Many assumed she was done, a relic of a previous era. But Coco wasn't finished yet. In 1954, at the age of 70, she boldly decided to return to Paris and reopen the House of Chanel, declaring that she still had more to say in fashion. The world of couture had changed in her 15-year absence. Christian Dior's elaborate new look with its cinched waists and full skirts had dominated post-war fashion, and a new generation of designers was on the rise. When Chanel debuted her comeback collection, the initial reaction in Paris was harsh. The French press, still unforgiving about her wartime association and perhaps thinking her style old-fashioned, gave lukewarm reviews and even scathing critiques, noting her age and calling her designs outdated. Coco was, once again, the underdog. However, the American and British press saw things differently. They hailed her 1954 collection as a breakthrough that restored youthful freedom to women's clothes. Buyers from New York and London rushed to order her new suits and dresses, and gradually, public opinion shifted, and the very elements Chanel was criticized for, the pared-down classic tweed suits, the easy-to-wear cut of her jackets, became celebrated as genius. Chanel had effectively introduced the world to the now iconic Chanel suit, a chic collarless cardigan jacket and skirt, often trimmed with braid, paired with pearls and a camellia, an outfit that offered elegance and comfort. Women loved it. Once again, Coco Chanel had read the times and given women what they didn't even know they needed. Throughout the late 1950s and 1960s, Chanel remained a force in fashion. She worked nonstop. Some say she became tough and tyrannical in her later years, utterly devoted to perfection. Stars like Elizabeth Taylor and Grace Kelly and Jackie Kennedy wore Chanel creations, which further cemented the brand's prestige. Coco's personal style, the ever-present strings of pearls, the tweed suits, the two-tone ballet flats, became as legendary as the clothes she made for others. In 1971, Chanel passed away at the age of 87, still designing up until her final days. At her funeral in Paris, an abundance of white flowers, camellias, orchids, azaleas adorned the church, a final tribute to the woman who loved a simple palette of black and white. Legacy and impact. Coco Chanel's story is more than just a biography of a fashion designer. It's a story of a creative visionary who changed the way women live and dress. She has been credited with nothing less than the emancipation of women's fashion by introducing comfortable jersey dresses, slacks for women, hands-free shoulder bags, costume jewelry, and the notion that luxury could be subtle. Chanel liberated women from the bondage of corsets and the constraint of dressing for male approval. As early as 1915, magazines recognized that Chanel's rise signaled the death blow to the corseted silhouette, and that under her influence, the fussy feathers and frills of the past were gone. She replaced them with an effortless, sporty chic that endures to this day. We still wear Chanel's innovations, from the little black dress to bell-bottom pants, Breton striped shirts, and quilted handbags, in some form over a century later. Chanel's name also lives on as a global luxury brand. After her death, the health of Chanel did not wither away. Rather, it was rejuvenated under new creative leadership. Notably, designer Karl Lagerfeld took the reins in the 1980s and for more than 3 decades carried Chanel's legacy forward, reimagining the classic Chanel look for new generations. Today, the interlocking CC logo, which Coco herself sketched back in the 1920s, is recognized worldwide as a symbol of style and elegance. Also, Coco Chanel is the only fashion designer named on Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people of the 20th century, which is a tribute to show just how profoundly she shaped modern culture. In the end, Coco Chanel's life journey from the impoverished orphan to reigning queen of couture is as dramatic and inspiring as any fairy tale. She overcame being abandoned, male chauvinism, and even the ups and downs of fortune and war. She once said, "Where you start doesn't matter. It's what you do next that counts." Her own story proves exactly that. Coco Chanel started with nothing, and through talent, ambition, and fearless innovation, she created a life of significance. Her legacy reminds us that vision and courage can spark a revolution in fashion and in one's own destiny. So, believe in your vision. Work endlessly on it, and never let anyone tell you that a poor person can't triumph. Coco Chanel did, and the world will never forget her for it. And congratulations, you're one video closer to who you're meant to be. Believe. To watch the incredible story of Vera Wang, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there. Vera Wang failed as a skater, got rejected by Vogue, and didn't design her first dress until 40. Now she's a fashion legend.